Hello, Mr. Daniels here, back with My Louisiana Sky, Chapter 18. This chapter is a little bit longer. You're going to be split into a couple sections here, and let's go ahead and get right into it. Story is starting to definitely pick up here. Something is definitely happening, according to Daddy. Let's find out what it is. All night I tossed and turned to the sounds of those birds. I tried to sleep with my head under the pillow, but I gave up because I could still hear them. Finally, I fell asleep by closing my eyes and counting rows and rows of camellia cuttings. Next morning, I woke to an eerie silence. I got out of bed when I heard Brando scratching at the front door. When I let him in, he darted through the living room and crawled under the couch. A clanking sound caused me to look out the window. Otis stopped in front of our house in his banged-up truck, and Magnolia got out, carrying her umbrella and purse. I opened the door for her as she was wiping her shoes on the mat. "The sky gonna let it look like it gonna let loose again," she said. Daddy walked into the living room and asked, Have you seen your mama?" "No, sir." Magnolia frowned and headed out toward the kitchen, calling out, "Miss Corina!" I poked my head into Granny's bedroom, but Mama wasn't there. Daddy went out the front door and I ran out the back. We met each other in the middle, where Mama was picking butter beans in Granny's garden. Granny's gown had muddy spots over the knees where Mama must have knelt. She was yanking butter beans off the vines and dropping them into a brown sack. "Corina," Daddy said, "you better get on out of the mud. The sky's fixing to do something." Mama's tongue stuck out of the corner of her mouth like she was concentrating. A strand of hair fell across her face. With a dirty hand, she tucked it behind her ear. Magnolia hollered from the screen porch, "Did you find that child?" "Oh, she's out here in the garden," I said. "We're trying to get her to come on in." "Leave her be," said Magnolia. I wanted to say, "What business of it is yours?" But I figured if it weren't for Magnolia, Mama would be laying in bed, wearing that stinky old nightgown. Daddy and I went in the house and left Mama in the garden. 30 minutes later, when we headed for work, she was still out there. On the drive to the Thompsons, I noticed part of the Enders fence was down again, but we didn't have to shoo their cows off the road. They were out in the field, all huddled together, like a bunch of old women gathered around Miss Eula. Daddy lowered his eyebrows. "Yep," he said, "them cows know something. So do them birds, the way they all took off." When we arrived, Milton and Shorty were in the planting field. Milton was picking up grass and weeds that Shorty had loosened with a hoe. Otis was wrapping burlap around the plant's root balls. Daddy parked the truck and told me to go over to the hothouse to gather up all the gallon cans I could carry over to the liner shed. "What for?" I asked. "You'll see," he said, frowning. "I ain't got time to explain more than once." It was the first time Daddy ever sounded impatient with me. Jesse Wade was nowhere in sight. I figured that one day of hard work he was plumb worn out. But a second later I noticed he was making cuttings from a Louisiana lady. He looked so serious, holding those clippings awkwardly in his hands. Daddy walked up to him. "Jesse Wade, could you go get your mama real quick?" "Yes, sir." Jesse Wade took off toward the house. A few moments later he returned with Mrs. Thompson. She wore blue jeans, one of Mr. Thompson's shirts, and his rubber work boots that went up to her knees. "Morning, Lonnie. Anything wrong?" Daddy cleared his throat. "Miss Thompson, I can't rightly say for sure, but it seems like something might be big is going to happen with this weather." "Well, what do you mean?" she asked, peering at the sky. By then, Shorty and Milton had made their way over to us, and Otis stood a few yards away. Everyone now was looking at Daddy. Well, you see, there was these birds. They landed in our trees yesterday." "Gee," said Shorty, lifting the wad of tobacco in his mouth. "Birds in a tree? What a mighty strange sight." Daddy didn't even look at Shorty. He kept telling Miss Thompson, "There's millions of 'em." Well, I can't rightly say millions. I didn't count them or nothing. Them birds were hopping and hollering and wouldn't shut up for the life of me. Then this morning, before the sun came up, they just up and left. Miss Thompson frowned. I don't think I rightly understand what you mean, Lonnie. I felt a blush work its way across my face. "I reckon them birds know something that we don't," said Daddy. Shorty interrupted. "Yeah, they know if you they know that if you'd keep it up, they'd have every cat and satyr after 'em." Milton sniggered, and Daddy's ears turned red. But Mrs. Thompson asked, "What do you think it means?" "I think there's a terrible storm a-comin' this way. Them birds know that. And the Angus cows do it too." The last of Daddy's words faded away. Mrs. Thompson knitted her eyebrows together. "What about the Angus cows?" "Well, they're all huddled up together in a field." I've heard of cows doing that before storms," she said. "Do you think this has anything to do with that hurricane they're expecting toward Cameron?" Jessie Wade spoke up. "Mama, I bet it does." And that second, watching him standing up for Daddy made me realize all over again why Jessie Wade Thompson was my best buddy. Shorty stepped forward with the hoe in his hand. "Oh, that hurricane's nowhere near here. Say there might get some rain, but that'll be it." Miss Thompson ignored him. "What do you think we should do, Lonnie?" Shorty was gripping the hoe so tight his knuckles turned white. Daddy cleared his throat. "I reckon we should get them Louisiana ladies safe. Mr. Thompson worked too hard on those camellias to see them washed away or beaten to death by the wind." All right, I think this is a great place to stop as a pausing moment in chapter 18 here to have some commentary. Daddy has seen multiple things happening with the animals. Number one, the birds in the trees. Number two, the Anders cows are all, the fence is open, but they're not even going outside that fence. They're all huddled up in the corner. Daddy thinks something's happening. Those cows know something. The birds know something. The birds have up and gone. They're out of there. And a lot of times birds know stuff that we don't know, because they're obviously flying around. They see things. The weather is more clear to them up there. Possible hurricane coming in. Now, if you know anything about a hurricane obviously has very strong winds, rain. It's like a tornado from the sea coming in, and that's possibly could be what's happening. And not only that, did you notice at the beginning of the chapter, of chapter 18, the eerie silence that happens when they wake up? I love the way they describe that. Brando the cat even runs in and hides under the door when they let him in. So all these things put together, what do you think is happening? Well, we're going to go ahead and pause here and move on to the last part of chapter 18 to find out exactly what's going on. This is Mr. Daniel signing off, saying thank you very much for listening to me on YouTube. God bless everyone.